My mother met him at a grief support group 6 months after my father died. He was charming, attentive, the perfect listener. He'd lost his wife to cancer, he said. Understood her pain. Knew exactly what to say. Within weeks, he was coming to dinner. Within months, he'd moved in. He's my soulmate, Mom told me, her eyes shining with a happiness I hadn't seen in years. I wanted to be happy for her. I really did. But something felt wrong. The way he avoided questions about his past. The way he always needed cash for emergencies. The way my mother's savings started disappearing. Let me rewind. My name is Maya. I'm 34, a paralegal, and my mother, Linda, is 68, a retired teacher. My father died 2 years ago. Sudden heart attack, no warning, no time to prepare. Mom was devastated. They'd been married for 40 years, together since college. She didn't know how to be alone. The grief group was my idea. I thought it would help her connect with people who understood, find some comfort, maybe even make friends. I never imagined she'd find a romantic partner. His name was David. David Miller. He was 65, retired, with a gentle smile and a sad story. His wife had died of cancer 3 years earlier. He had no children, no close family, nothing to tie him down. He was free to focus on the woman who'd given him hope again. Mom was smitten. She talked about him constantly, his kindness, his humor, his old-fashioned values. I tried to be supportive. I invited them to dinner, asked polite questions, smiled through my discomfort. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. David was too perfect, too smooth. He had an answer for everything, but never a detail. Where did he work before retiring? Oh, a small company, you wouldn't know it. Where did he grow up? All over, military family. His stories were vague, shifting, impossible to verify. I mentioned my concerns to Mom. She dismissed them with a wave. You're just protective, sweetie. He's a good man. I can tell. Then the money started disappearing. It was small at first, $100 here, $200 there. Mom said it was for groceries, for gas, for helping David with a temporary cash flow problem. I didn't push. She was an adult. Her money was her own. But then it got bigger. $1,000 for a medical emergency, $2,500 for a business opportunity, $5,000 for a family crisis. Within 6 months, she'd given him over $40,000. I confronted Mom. He's taking advantage of you. Can't you see that? She was furious. He loves me. He needs help. You're just jealous because I'm happy. I backed off, but I didn't stop watching. I started doing research. Google searches, social media scans, public records. Nothing. David Miller was a ghost. No history, no footprint, no past. That's when I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus. He was retired FBI, now running his own agency. I paid him a $2,000 retainer and gave him everything I had, David's name, his photo, his phone number, his vague stories. 2 weeks later, Marcus called. Maya, I found him. But his name isn't David Miller. I felt my stomach drop. What is it? His real name is Daniel Cross. He's wanted in 3 states for fraud, theft, and identity theft. He's been running this scam for 20 years, preying on widows, draining their accounts, disappearing before anyone catches on. I sat down heavily, the phone shaking in my hand. My mother gave him $40,000. She's not the first. We've identified at least 12 other victims. Total losses over $2 million. He's good at what he does, charming, patient, ruthless. What do I do? First, don't confront him. He's dangerous. He's been violent before when cornered. Second, get your mother out of there. Bring her to your place somewhere safe. Third, call the police. I'll send you my full report. I hung up and stared at the wall, my mind racing. My mother was living with a con artist, a criminal, a man who destroyed dozens of lives. I drove to her house immediately. David's car was in the driveway. I parked down the street and called Mom. Mom, I need you to come outside. Alone. It's an emergency. She came out looking confused. What's wrong? I pulled her into my car and drove away before she could protest. Maya, what are you doing? David is inside. He'll worry. Mom, David isn't who you think he is. His real name is Daniel Cross. He's a con artist. He's wanted in 3 states. He's been stealing from you. She stared at me, her face shifting from confusion to disbelief to horror. That's not possible. He loves me. He's done this before, Mom. At least 12 other women. Total losses over $2 million. I have proof. I handed her Marcus's report. She read it in silence, her hands shaking, tears streaming down her face. When she finished, she looked at me with an expression I'll never forget, grief, shame, and a dawning, terrible realization. I gave him everything, she whispered. My savings, my trust, my heart. I called the police from my apartment, with Mom beside me. They arrived within the hour, took her statement, and issued a warrant for Daniel's arrest. But when they went to her house, he was gone, vanished, along with the $40,000 and whatever else he could carry. Mom was devastated, not just about the money, about the betrayal. The man she'd loved, trusted, welcomed into her home, had been using her from the start. She barely ate, barely slept, just sat in my guest room staring at the wall. The police searched for Daniel, but he disappeared. New identity, new state, new victims. They'd catch him eventually, they always did, but it might take years. Then, 3 weeks later, I got a call from Marcus. They'd found him, and he wasn't alone. Marcus called me on a Thursday afternoon. We found him. He's in Nevada, living with another woman. Same story, same scam. She's already given him $60,000. I felt a surge of rage, not just for my mother, but for all the women he'd victimized. What happens now? I asked. The FBI is moving in. They've been tracking him for months. This time he won't get away. I hung up and told my mother. For the first time in weeks, something flickered in her eyes. Not hope, exactly, but a glimmer of something other than despair. They caught him. They're about to. The arrest happened 3 days later. I watched it on the news. Daniel Cross, a.k.a. David Miller, being led out of a suburban house in handcuffs. Behind him, a woman stood on the porch, her face a mask of shock and betrayal. She looked just like my mother had 6 months ago. Same age, same vulnerable expression, same dawning horror. The FBI press conference was brief. Daniel was charged with fraud, identity theft, and fleeing to avoid prosecution. They estimated his total haul at over $3 million, with at least 15 confirmed victims. They were asking anyone with information to come forward. My mother watched the coverage in silence. When it ended, she turned to me. I want to testify, she said. At his trial. I want to look him in the eye and tell him what he did to me. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. For me. For all the women he's hurt. I need to do this. I hugged her, tears in my eyes. This was the mother I remembered, strong, resilient, unwilling to be a victim. The trial was scheduled for 6 months out. In the meantime, the FBI contacted other victims, building their case. I learned about women across the country, all with stories like my mother's. A widow in Ohio, a divorcee in Florida, a retired teacher in Texas. All of them had been charmed, conned, and abandoned by the same man. We formed a support group, connecting online, sharing our stories. It helped a little. Knowing we weren't alone made the pain more bearable. The trial date approached. My mother prepared her testimony with the prosecutor, a fierce woman named Harris. She practiced speaking clearly, calmly, without breaking down. She was ready. The trial began on a Monday. Daniel sat at the defendant's table in a prison jumpsuit, looking nothing like the charming man who'd moved into my mother's house. His new girlfriend, the one from Nevada, sat in the gallery, crying quietly. Other victims filled the rows behind her, a silent army of betrayed women. The prosecutor laid out the case methodically. Bank records, fake identities, a pattern of deception stretching back decades. Witness after witness took the stand, telling their stories. Each one was a knife twist, a reminder of the lives he'd destroyed. Then it was my mother's turn. She walked to the stand with her head held high, looked at Daniel, and began to speak. But before she could finish, something unexpected happened. Something that changed everything. My mother took the stand with a quiet dignity that made me proud. She described meeting Daniel, falling for his charm, trusting him completely. She described the money, the slow trickle that became a flood, the $40,000 she'd never see again. And she described the moment she learned the truth, the devastation of realizing the man she loved had never existed. The courtroom was silent, hanging on every word. Then, as she finished, Daniel's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to recall a previous witness." The judge nodded, and the woman from Nevada walked to the stand. Her name was Sarah. She was 62, a retired nurse, and she'd been living with Daniel for 8 months before his arrest. She'd given him $60,000, believing his lies just as my mother had. But as she testified, something strange happened. She didn't just describe the fraud, she described something else. "Before he was arrested, Daniel gave me a letter," she said. "He told me to open it only if something happened to him. After the FBI took him, I found it in my nightstand." The prosecutor objected, but the judge allowed the letter to be entered as evidence. A court officer handed it to the judge, who read it silently. Her expression shifted, surprise, then something else. Concern. "This letter," the judge said, "contains information that may be relevant to these proceedings. I'm going to allow the witness to read it aloud." Sarah took the letter, her hands shaking, and began to read. "To whoever finds this, if you're reading this, I'm probably in custody. I want to confess, not just to the fraud, to everything. I've been running from my past for 20 years, and I'm tired. My real name isn't Daniel Cross. It's Michael Reeves. And I'm not just a con artist. I'm a fugitive. I escaped from prison 22 years ago while serving time for manslaughter. I killed a man in a bar fight, got convicted, and ran. I've been hiding ever since. I'm sorry. To all the women I've hurt, to all the lives I've destroyed. I'm tired of running. Michael." The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the doors. Victims gasped, cried, stared in shock. Daniel, Michael, sat at the defendant's table, his face pale, his eyes downcast. The judge called for order, then addressed the prosecutor. "This changes everything. We'll need to adjourn while the FBI investigates these new claims." The trial was halted. Michael was taken into federal custody, facing not just fraud charges, but escape and potential murder charges as well. My mother sat beside me, her hand gripping mine so tight it hurt. "He killed someone," she whispered. "I let a murderer into our home." "You didn't know, Mom." None of us knew. But the knowledge was devastating. The man who'd charmed her, loved her, stolen from her, was a killer. A fugitive. A monster wearing a human mask. The investigation took months. The FBI traced Michael's past, confirmed his identity, and reopened the original murder case. He was facing life in prison now, not just for fraud, but for the crime he'd escaped decades ago. The victims gathered again, this time not just as fraud survivors, but as people who'd unknowingly harbored a fugitive. The shock was profound. Some couldn't handle it. Others found strength in each other. My mother, amazingly, was one of the strong ones. She started speaking at support groups, sharing her story, helping other women avoid the same trap. She turned her pain into purpose. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. A week before Michael's new trial, I got a call from a woman named Detective Martinez. She had more questions about my mother's relationship with Michael, about anything he might have said or done. And then she asked something that made my blood run cold. "Did your mother ever mention a safe deposit box? Or any documents Michael might have left behind?" I thought about it. "No." "Why?" "Because we found one. In his real name. And inside, there was something that might interest you." Detective Martinez met me at the police station on a gray Tuesday morning. She led me to an evidence room, unlocked a metal cabinet, and pulled out a small box. "We found this in a safe deposit box under Michael's real name," she said. "It contains documents, cash, and something else. Something we think belongs to your mother." I opened the box with trembling hands. Inside was a stack of letters, a bundle of cash, nearly $20,000, and a small velvet pouch. I opened the pouch. Inside was my mother's wedding ring. The one she'd thought was lost. The one she'd cried over for months. My mother had worn that ring for 40 years. After my father died, she never took it off, until one day, she couldn't find it. She assumed she'd lost it somewhere. Maybe at the grocery store, maybe at home. She'd searched everywhere, but it never turned up. Now I knew where it had gone. Michael had stolen it. Along with the money, along with her trust, along with everything else. I took the box home to my mother. She opened it slowly, her hands shaking. When she saw the ring, she burst into tears. "He took it," she whispered. "He took everything. Even this." "Mom, there's also cash. Nearly $20,000. And letters." We spent the evening going through the box. The letters were from other victims, women Michael had scammed over the years. Some were angry, some were sad, some were just confused. He'd kept them all, trophies of his destruction. The cash was a mystery. Why had he hidden it? Was it from other crimes? Was he planning to use it to escape again? The next day, I called Detective Martinez. She explained that the cash would be held as evidence, but eventually it would be returned to victims. The letters would be used to identify other women who'd been scammed. And the ring? My mother could keep it. It was hers. But the box held one more secret. At the very bottom, beneath the letters and cash, was a photograph. A woman, young and beautiful, holding a baby. On the back, in faded ink, Sarah and Michael Jr., 1985. I stared at the photo, my mind racing. Michael had a wife, a child, a family he'd abandoned. Were they still out there? Did they know what he'd become? I gave the photo to Detective Martinez. She promised to investigate, to find Sarah and Michael Jr., if they were still alive. It was a long shot, but maybe they deserved to know the truth. My mother, meanwhile, was healing. The ring was back on her finger, a symbol of the love she'd shared with my father, untouched by Michael's betrayal. The cash, when it was returned, would go to charity, a way to turn something stolen into something good. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. A month later, I got a call from Detective Martinez. They'd found Sarah, Michael's wife, and she wanted to meet. Sarah was waiting for me at a small cafe in a town I'd never visited. She was older now, of course, 62, with silver hair and sad eyes. But I recognized her from the photograph. She sat alone at a corner table, a cup of tea untouched in front of her. When I walked in, she looked up, and I saw something flicker in her face. Fear, hope, uncertainty. "You must be Maya," she said softly. I nodded, sitting across from her. "Thank you for coming." We sat in silence for a moment, two women connected by a monster, trying to find words for the unspeakable. Sarah told me her story slowly, painfully. She'd met Michael when she was 19, married him at 20, had their son at 22. He'd been charming then too, loving, attentive, the perfect husband. But there was another side, a temper, a violence that emerged when he drank. The bar fight that killed a man wasn't an accident, she said. It was who he was. After he was convicted, she'd visited him in prison, tried to keep their family together. But he'd escaped, disappeared, left her to raise their son alone. She'd spent decades wondering if he was alive, if he'd ever come back, if she'd ever get closure. When I saw the news, I didn't know what to feel, she said. Relief, I think. That he was finally caught. That it was over. Did you know about the other women? The scams? She shook her head. I knew he was a liar, a thief, a killer, but I didn't know the extent. Not until the FBI contacted me. We talked for hours. About Michael, about our mothers, about the lives we'd built despite him. Sarah's son, Michael Jr., was now a successful architect, married with children of his own. He'd never known his father. Sarah had protected him from that truth. I'm glad, I said, that he didn't have to grow up with that. He's a good man, Sarah said, despite everything. Before we parted, Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. I found this among Michael's things. It's addressed to you. I thought you should have it. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten, in Michael's shaky script. Maya, I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not for getting caught, for everything. For your mother, for the money, for the lies. I've spent my whole life running, and I'm tired. Your mother was different. She reminded me of Sarah, before everything went wrong. I didn't just scam her, I loved her, in my own broken way. I know that doesn't matter. I know it doesn't change what I did. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just telling you the truth. Finally, Michael. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. I never showed it to my mother. She didn't need to know. Michael was convicted of murder, escape, and multiple counts of fraud. He's serving life in federal prison with no possibility of parole. My mother visits his name in her nightmares sometimes, but less often now. The ring is back on her finger, and she started dating again, cautiously, carefully, with her eyes wide open. Sarah and I stayed in touch. We're not friends, exactly, too much history, too much pain. But we're something. 2 women connected by a monster, finding our way through the wreckage. The money, most of it, was never recovered. But my mother doesn't care about that anymore. She cares about the life she's building, the peace she's found, the daughter who stood by her through everything. The micro-niche here isn't just romance scams or elder fraud. It's about the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity to heal after betrayal, and the unexpected connections that emerge from the ashes. It's about a mother and daughter who survived a monster and a wife who finally got closure. Have you ever watched someone you love fall victim to a scam? How did you help them heal? Share your stories in the comments below. Let's talk about protecting the ones we love and finding strength in the aftermath. And if this story of con artists, stolen rings, and hard-won peace resonated with you, share it. Sometimes, the most important thing we can do is tell the truth and hold on to each other. Thanks for listening.